Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out tonight to the third of 3 City Council Town Halls. With us tonight from Ward 3 are council members Megan Guido and Pat Wright. This meeting is being recorded, so when you do want to come up and speak, please get your mouth right up here next to the microphone so the people that are listening to this at home and want to watch it later on video can hear the discussions. Just a couple quick notes over here on the screen. I'm not going to go over all of them, but I do just want to kind of point out an item on keep comments brief. Over the last 2 evenings, we ran right up to the closing time of 7:30 on this, so I just want to make sure everybody gets their chance to be heard. So the next 90 minutes, or if you're done earlier, is yours. First, a word from our council members, and we'll get right into it. Thanks for coming tonight.
Go ahead. Well, thanks, Mike. For anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Megan Guido. I represent Ward 3 and fairly new on the council. I started in January of this year and very happy to be here.
Thanks, Megan. I'm happy to be here as well, and I've just been delighted with the turnout that we've had all week with people coming to share their ideas and provide suggestions, also with a few solutions, which is always a good thing. And it's because of all of you that we are having these sessions. It's something, and I see Brandon Chapman in the back, and this was his brainchild several years ago, and it has now finally come to fruition. And it was one of our goals and priorities for this biennium 2022 and 23. Actually, we were calling it Increasing Public Feedback, Coffee with Council Members. So this is not quite coffee, and probably not exactly as warm a setting as you would have with coffee, but certainly a vehicle that we can use to get information from you that we can put into action through City Council. And it's just great. We're here because of you, and a lot of what we do is from suggestions that you make to us. So thank you for coming out tonight, and hopefully we can answer any questions, have discussion, come up with a few more suggestions and solutions. So welcome. Somebody will break the ice, I know that.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Marilyn Von Zegern. My address is 1040 Northeast Creston Lane here in Pullman. And first of all, I want to thank you for serving as our counselors for Ward 3, all the time that it takes to do a good job of that. And also thank you for this opportunity to voice some thoughts. I actually have 3 points, and I'll do them pretty quickly, so I hope that's not too much. First, I wanted to thank you and all the council for the climate action things that have been going on, and just note that that things have been done, but there's a lot still to do. And noting the survey results that we heard last week, people are pretty interested in the council, in the city, taking action and doing things. So I guess if you'd like to comment on that and tell me what your thoughts are going forward, that would be great. For me, that kind of leads into another issue, which is trees in Pullman, because trees are so important for carbon sequestration and filtering air pollution, so it kind of plays right into climate action. And I've heard that a lot of people are speaking about this. I think there is great interest in it, the value of the urban forest and what it can do for us. I won't list all the things that I've noted about that, but also just wondered what your thoughts are on moving forward with that and how how it plays out in organization and what we can do. And my third issue is walkability in Pullman. I live on College Hill, do a lot of walking. This time of year, there's not much problem, except for people who expect to have their garbage disposal things ready every day of the week, so, so they're always left out. But other than that, it's pretty great. But we're coming into winter, and that can be a really dangerous time to be out walking, and I don't like to give it up. So I wondered if there's anything the city could do. I know that it's written into the code. I know we have officers who work on that end of things, giving citations, and you can tell them of things that are wrong. But is there something else that we can do about that? I don't know. I hate to suggest some things. Maybe you have some ideas on that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you,
you.
Marilyn. You want to go first?
Go ahead.
So I think every one of these events this week we have had questions and comments about climate action. And I think what you have heard and what we have tried to convey is that the council is committed to climate action. And we are starting environmental activities associated with that. But we're at a first step, and it always takes a first step. And with any committees and commissions that we set up for that, it's going to be brand new. And so we first of all have to get that set up, structured, look for people that are interested in participating, and then through that action, get recommendations back to the council. But we certainly, starting with what the citizens lobby did with the survey, that certainly gives us a place to start looking at what some of the needs are. It's a start. And it's when, just like the trees, when is the best time to plant a tree? Well, that was 20 years ago. But having not been able to do that at this juncture, today is the best day to plant a tree. And so today really is the best way to start any kind of activity that we have for climate. And I think you'll find that all of us are in concert with that. We all want to take an active role in moving that forward.
Yeah, I would agree that we, as a council, are committed to looking at policies related to climate. And, of course, some of our past history, I just have to tout the fact that we had enough foresight to invest in all electronic buses. And I know a gentleman who works on those buses here for the city, and he said they actually were great getting up the hills and the ice, and they actually have the power to get up our very steep hills in Pullman. So that was an incredible investment, and I know that we've been recognized, at least regionally, if not nationally, for the fact that we are a small town that has invested in that. So that speaks volumes to me. The fact that we have, like Pat said, the Citizens Lobby survey results give us a nice baseline, and I was really encouraged to see how excited people are about this subject and want to be involved in it. So as Pat said, we are looking at putting together a climate committee, and just like she said, that the only way we can move forward is to get the input from folks in terms of what are those priorities, what do we need to work on. And I commend the Citizens Lobby for Climate Lobby for taking that step and doing a really thorough survey to get that feedback that they did. In terms of trees and carbon sequestration, we know that's incredibly important. We heard loud and clear in terms of the plans downtown to not remove trees. I know that part of the work that we're doing with BDS, the contractor rather, who's designing a lot of the downtown plans, has a arborist on, I believe Mike said, if you can help me out, that they do have an arborist that they're working with that will be, he's going to speak to this. So someone who is knowledgeable about trees, tree canopies, how we can ensure that we have trees remaining downtown, as well as, there will be some that have to be removed, but not a blanketed, all of the trees are gone.
Right, thank you. And I want to apologize, a piece of information I did give to the council members last night that was new, that I neglected to give to you tonight, is Welch Comer will be back in front of the city council on October 18th doing a briefing, and this will be part of that briefing.
Great.
And semi-adjacent on the Environmental Resiliency Commission. I was writing that agenda item before I came into this room, so that'll also be in front of council on the 18th for consideration to adopt.
Great.
And I will just add that we have heard both previous nights that there is such a level of interest in the trees, in urban forestry, and we will continue to really concentrate on how to execute some of those kinds of things. An interesting activity that I heard about last night that I hadn't heard of that before, called tree banking, where you can set up a fund that people can, donate to, and that fund is just dedicated to replacing, planting trees. And one of the things last night that came out was that trees have a life cycle, and some trees don't live forever. And that's also part of the arborist exercise, if you will, is determining, when a tree is at end of life and how to take care of that and how to renew the forest after, some of those things have taken an impact. And I think that just kind of involves thinking outside the box, and I think we're ready to do that. The city is committed to hiring I wouldn't say horticulturist, but a parks specialist with an emphasis on those things that we have just been talking about. And the message has been heard loud and clear about the need and the desire for increased urban forestry and the tree canopies all around town. So we hear you.
And Marilyn, you talked a little bit about you're a walker and you're concerned about walkability. I too am a walker and have the same concerns about sidewalk maintenance and keeping sidewalks clear of debris, and homeowners making sure that they take care of the ice and the snow removal in front of their homes and on the sidewalks, that they're responsible for that. So, that is code enforcement. But one thought, and I was talking to Councilmember Benjamin about this, is the College Hill Association is very good at this, doing walk audits, but could we maybe do something like that on various hills, or have neighborhood captains, whatever you want to call them, that will look, not to tell on their neighbors, we don't want to get into that, but if there's a group that's dedicated to walking a certain part of their neighborhood on a regular basis, and can we work together to identify those areas that need help? And there could be a reason why, the homeowner may not be able to keep it up. Could we help them out? Those kinds of things. So I think, again, trying to be more of a neighborhood that can work together on this.
And I would echo what Megan just said, and I was going to reference the College Hill Association as well, because they really have been the prototype for looking at the walkability issues, particularly on College Hill. And it's a great idea to expand that to all of the neighborhoods. Again, you know, a first step, but I think College Hill Association has kind of put together a good model to be replicated around town. And the council, again, is committed to walkability. It's one of the livable aspects of Pullman, and we have adopted the complete streets mode of transportation, if you will, whether that's people-powered or motor-powered or bike-powered. But again, there is that commitment from the council to look at all of those different kinds of things. Again, it's the thinking outside the box, and that's what we're here to do. That's why we've invited all of you to participate as well.
Good evening, counselors. Thank you for all the work you do. I understand how hard it is to play this role, and I admire you. And thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name's Nancy Mack. I live at 910 Southeast Sunnymead Way in Pullman. And I want to follow up on the walkability concept Marilyn gave with the one issue that I think deserves a really big top priority in Pullman, and that is the trail system. After seeing the benefits of the Chipman Trail in use for the past 26 years, I'm convinced that having all of Pullman's abandoned or unused rail lines rail banked now. What a golden opportunity we have to protect the precious pathways by rail banking all the lines now so that over the years we can create wonderful linear parkways that connect people from all four hills into our downtown and to destinations out of town and beyond. These ribbons of transportation are worth rail banking so they won't be sold, and they can be claimed as potential walking, biking, and non-motorized routes. The city needs to convert the abandoned rail trestle as well, the big metal structure downtown, the trestle, into a focal point for our downtown because it represents our heritage. It could become a trail or a public space, a special spot to acknowledge the role that trains played in Pullman's development. And if Pullman wishes to become a Main Street town, which I believe is one of the goals of the city, we need to show that we value historic preservation. Trails are what the citizens want. I know this from working on that Chipman Trail for many years of my life. And the paved landscapes are way preferable to big box stores or, very large paved areas. Our city needs to take the ownership of the abandoned lines, both from the Burlington Northern and the Union Pacific lines, so they can become managed and set the momentum for nearby cities to do the same. Colfax would like to do this, but they're looking to Pullman to initiate rail banking, get it to happen. They have unused tracks through Colfax as well. We also learned from building the Chipman Trail that the 10-foot width pavement is not enough. We have too many mixed uses today with electric bikes, kids on their small bikes, people walking, elderly people. All of our trails need to be at least 12 feet wide with a shoulder, and that provides useful movement through town. I've spoken to Kurt Damon about expanding the Chipman Trail from Bishop Boulevard's beginning for the first mile out into a 12-foot width because this portion is becoming unsafe. It's overused. That's the part most people use is the first mile out. There's bikes and children and strollers and people that just want a pleasant experience for that first mile out, and it's not pleasant if there's a pretty day and there's a lot going on. So the first mile out should be made wider to accommodate all the growing needs of this famous trail. The opportunity rail bank today is unprecedented. We can preserve our linear pathways for the future and make Pullman better known as a destination for walkers, hikers, bicyclers, and families to come live here who value outdoor recreation. The nearby property values of trails do increase. Crime declines, and people have more fun if they live where paths are readily available. And thank you very much.
I might just follow up with
I'm sorry.
a comment. Please, I was just going to respond to Nancy's thoughtful comments. On a personal level, I am a big believer in the trail system and very interested in the rail banking concept. And I think you're absolutely right. It draws in a lot of folks has potential to draw in a lot of folks from other areas and be a tourist destination for us. A lot of pluses that I see related to that. And thanks to the Pullman Civic Trust and folks like yourself, the council is very aware of that as an option, and I think is getting more educated about it, and has even prioritized from a legislative standpoint, looking at our rail system. So I'm with you on the whole idea of the trails, how important they are to preservation of our community and our identity. And going forward, we need to be looking at how we can not only expand, but preserve or expand where we need to, just based on, you said, there's so many different types of vehicles or motorized scooters, that kind of stuff, that we need to be adaptable.
Thanks for your comments, Nancy. I remember it's probably, if the Chipman Trail has been in use, or at least in business, if you will, for 26 years. I remember at least 28 to 30 years ago first having that initial conversation about the trail and thinking, wow, I'm not sure we can do that. Mm-hmm. And you know, the model that was suggested was similar to the Boise Greenbelt. Mm. And so, you know, you put that one picture in your mind and think, oh my gosh, how are we ever going to do that? But in 26 short years, if you will, look at the progress that's been made and look at the popularity of the Chipman Trail, which then has branched out into other adjuncts, if you will. And we are we're having discussions, I believe, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, about the rail banking. And there are a number of different agencies, though, that are involved in that discussion. So as I mentioned earlier to Marilyn, it's a first step, and it becomes more doable when we have the positive power of people like you and Pullman Civic Trust. Bobby Ryder obviously is just a huge proponent and advocate for rail banking, and it takes all of us to work all those different angles to get it done. And as Megan said, we do have some legislative priorities that we continue to talk with our 9th District legislators to get assistance to help us move closer to that direction. But it is a commitment. It is something that we want to see through. So, sir.
Hello, my name is Tim Kohler. Like the first speaker, I live at 1040 Northeast Creston Lane, and I have been a Pullman resident for close to 45 years now. And I love it. That's why we're still here, even though we're retired. I'd like to begin by thanking you for taking the time to do this, and also to underscore the comment by Nancy Mack about the importance of trying to do rail-to-trail conversions within the city of Pullman, because as you know, or at least I suspect, that if we can get that accomplished, then there will be additional leverage to try to get the trails all the way to Colfax put under that same system as well. At least we can hope for that. in that same light, I'd also like to point out that as somebody who bicycles the Chipman Trail quite a bit, that there's quite a lot of that trail, including within Pullman, that needs maintenance. Some of the cracks are getting very large and very uncomfortable on a bike, and so it wouldn't take much, I don't think, to perform that maintenance, but I just don't know if that gets regularly rolled into the sorts of things that the city thinks about doing, and I don't even know quite who's responsible for the maintenance on those. Perhaps you can comment on that. I'd also like to underscore Marilyn's point about the importance of climate action to reduce our greenhouse gas footprint here in Pullman. The trails are an important part of that. That's really good. And I also really want to congratulate you on putting those e-buses in service. I know that that was kind of a brave thing to do for a city of our size. I hope we can expand that program. We live only one lot away from Stadium Way, and I can tell you that the e-buses are not only much cleaner, but they're also much quieter, which makes it increases the livability of the system of the city quite a lot. I wonder, trying to think a little bit creatively, perhaps, about what we can do for greenhouse gases. I don't know what role the city could play, for example, in encouraging homeowners to install solar panels. If there's anything that the city could do in that regard, I think that would be very useful, and that's an important second step for us to continue to decrease our greenhouse gases. I know that we have some plugs installed for EVs. I think we need to audit the usage of those to see if it makes sense to install some more of those, because we hope, of course, that EV usage will expand rather dramatically in the next few years. The last point I'd like to make has to do, again, returning to code enforcement. And we now have this interesting situation imposed upon us by the state where we no longer have neighborhoods designated R1 and so forth. At least that's my understanding, that those no longer have the force that they used to have. So that means that our only real leverage to retain the kind of livability that R1 neighborhoods have always enjoyed is to very strictly enforce various codes, including codes having to do with parking and codes having to do with snow shoveling in the winter and so forth and so on. As you probably know, there are many streets on College Hill where the shoveling of sidewalks is essentially non-existent. So that makes walking very difficult. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think just a comment on the electric buses. I think all but 2 in our fleet are now electric. Is that correct, Mike? Or we only have 2 diesel left?
I think all but 2 are not either electric or hybrid.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I want to check on. And the next electric bus is scheduled to arrive by the end of the month, but based on delivery schedules lately, I better say November. It's been a little bit of a challenge. And to address the Chipman Trail, just really quick, we do program $10,000 a year for maintenance through the association that partners on the Chipman Trail, which I would want to triple check, but Whitman County, Washington State University, Pullman, University of Idaho, City of Moscow, and we've kept our amount stable even while other partners have reduced theirs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, as John is walking up, please come. A lot of the things, Mr. Kohler, that you just brought up speak to me for things that our climate committee or environmental committee can start to take on as that committee gets formed. And, we'll be looking for continued input from all of you as to what those priorities are. So I would just kind of keep on the lookout for those announcements. So thank you for your feedback. Please.
If I can add one more thing, I'm sorry, John. I too am concerned about, I guess it speaks more to housing and maintenance, because we have so many renters and rentals, and you obviously live on College Hill. I'm very interested in the fact that a lot of our owners of these residences that are rental units don't live here and don't see. I work up on College Hill, and so I walk up on Ruby and campus a lot, and that area up there continues to be, something that I'm concerned about, because I think there's lack of investment. And again, College Hill Association is a great model, and they do a lot to try and raise awareness and with the walk audits, but there's a larger issue in Pullman of so many houses being rented, and owners from Seattle or corporations are, snapping them up, and you just don't have the ability to even get a hold of them sometimes. So it's definitely on my radar, and something that I think contributes to our quality of life, and it's happening nationally. More and more, big corporations are coming in and buying up real estate. And so it's not unique to Pullman anymore, because we're a college town. It's happening everywhere. So what are the implications of that? That's a concern. Thanks.
My name is John Anderson. I live at 861 Southeast Edgenole Drive. I basically want to reinforce a lot of what other people have said, including what you people said at Tuesday night. I know there was a long talk about trails in Pullman and the importance of trails. I'm not going to repeat any of that. The one thing I do want to add is, as a bicyclist and a runner on these trails, motorized vehicles are becoming more and more of a hazard. It's just more and more common for me to have to slam on the brakes to avoid colliding with somebody on an electric bicycle or an electric scooter. It's just happening increasingly often. I know the civic trust big issue these days is rail banking within Pullman. The rail lines could be a real asset. I think rail banking those lines could be really important, and I'm hoping that that can move ahead. Also, I want to reinforce what the College Hill Association has said about making land immediately adjacent to water towers into small parks, and there are some places in those in the areas adjacent to water towers where maintenance roads could be readily converted into pedestrian bicycle paths. I just want to reinforce that without repeating it. Second thing I want to talk about is the city has had a consultant for quite some time ago to write a new pedestrian bicycle plan. I know that that plan is back in the city. I'm not sure where it is. I would like to see the city move forward. I served on the committee in 1992 that wrote the most recent plan, and I'd like to see a new plan. I'd like to see moving forward on the plan that the consultant has, as far as I know, completed. The last thing I want to mention, unfortunately I have to leave a little early to attend the October meeting of the Grand Avenue Book Club in Neal Public Library. The library just celebrated its 100th anniversary, and I want to reinforce and emphasize the role of Neal Public Library in the city of Pullman. We could not get along without Neal Public Library for a whole variety of reasons. Some of them you can see if you walk to the library. If you go into the library, you can see that it's a very busy place. Children going back and forth to children's reading programs, people who regularly go there to read newspapers and magazines. They still have books, by the way. You can find books in Neal Public Library. Some things you can't see. The Anytime Library, that's a large electronic collection of books, books on tape and so forth. In fact, for the November book club meeting, I've already checked out the book from the electronic library that the city is a part of. There's also the Canopy streaming service that's Canopy with a K. If you have a library card, you can get into Canopy, and for no cost to the consumer, you can get movies, TV shows, and so forth. It's much like Netflix or Amazon Prime, except that it's through a library and the patrons don't have to pay. It's a really good program. There are, the library has a sewing group. English is a second language. Neal Public Library just performs a wide variety of very important services to the community, and I wanted to emphasize the library to you. Thanks.
Well, I appreciate the comments, John. Yeah, I think Neal Public Library is an absolute gem. I think small communities, the library is so much a focus, and it's so much a part of the vitality of the community, and I just am a strong believer in not only all libraries, but our library in particular just seems outstanding. And the council has had a couple of reports about the work of the library employees during COVID, during a tough time, and how friends of the library stepped up. And I mean, my gosh, that's a story in itself. I feel very strongly about the continued support of the library. I just wanted to pick up on something you said around the motorized various, I don't even know what you'd call them, but whether they're scooters or the hover bikes, and this was just kind of brought up to me today by someone who was asking me questions related to this. But I think we're going to have to find a happy medium and share some spaces with those folks. I mean, I do think, yes, we have to be careful as motorists. We always have to be attentive to all different folks that could be using our space in different ways, whether it's bicyclists or runners or, again, these scooters. But there are people who are saying this is a way that I can get around and not be contributing to the use of fossil fuels and pollution. So they're here to stay, and I think we have to work to understand how we can share roadways or bike paths, et cetera.
I would echo what Megan said about the library. It is indeed one of Pullman's gems and is really functioning, as you pointed out, John, as really a community center. From birth to close to end of life, people utilize that library as a resource. It's just amazing. There are people there all the time. There's parking. I mean, the parking lot is always full, and it's usually from library patrons. And interestingly enough, I was at a meeting last night where we were discussing how to spend some portion of donated dollars, and the overriding vote was to support the Friends of Neal Public Library because it is such a resource. And one can't talk about the library without calling attention to our wonderful library director that graced us with her presence for, gosh, I don't know, 10 years at least. And that would be Joanna Bailey, although she's not with us anymore. She laid the groundwork for the gem that library is. And a lot of where we have gone with the library is mainly due to her attention, and we would be remiss in not calling Joanna out. And I know her, the new library director is going to follow along, in those same activities. So we're very fortunate in being able to do that. And just to piggyback on the other thing that Megan mentioned about the motorized vehicles, in just having a little bit of a discussion here earlier, some of the ordinances that are on record for addressing different kinds of conveyances are old and don't really address the nature of the devices that are available to people today. And so I think that's one of the things that we can look at is reviewing some of those old codes and ordinances and bringing them up to the level where we are right now, because I agree. I think all of those different conveyances are here to stay. And it's to our benefit to enable and facilitate the use of those alternative devices, but we have to be smart in how we do it. So there we are.
Hello,
Hi.
I'm Linda Meyer. I live in Campus Vista Trailer Park. Have a few things that I'd like to comment on. One of them is removing some of the dead trees around town and replanting new ones. There's a lot of areas that have dead trees, and they're also a fire hazard. And I'd like to have some of the trees that are replanted be like fruit trees, fruit shrubs, nut trees, something for the people and wildlife to be able to glean. There's actually a Facebook page going on right now trying to get something going on, since Mary's Park is no longer going to be a food thing, that they want to try to have the city help, I think, to create a food forest for residents. I'd also, as far as the trails go, I'd like to see more benches along the trails. Okay. So people like myself who can't walk very far can stop and rest and what have you. Another one I would like to think, I was at a city planning meeting for water and sewer reclamation and runoff. But they also said that they use past models, and maybe we need to contact climatologists to find out if we're going to be wetter or drier around here, so we know if our plans are going to be working for the future. As far as the trails go, I've seen it online and some other places where the areas that are most used by bicyclists and walkers, they have solar panels over it so they can go in any time of weather. And that can be added to the grid or, used for overhead lighting, that sort of thing. Also keep the snow off the trails too, which would be helpful. That's all I have to say, but thank you.
Trees seem to be a recurring theme. And so in my notes that I've been taking the last 3 nights, I've got lots of asterisks around trees. And there are a variety of different options that, we have to study and that we have to look at. And again, some of which I would never have thought about had all of you not come forward with some of your ideas on that. So we certainly appreciate this level of feedback. Now the hard questions are going to come.
I actually don't believe these will be that hard. Brandon Chapman, I'm at 1110 Southeast Sunnymead Way. I'm right down the road from Nancy and from Councilmember Wright, and around the corner from John Anderson. Just really quickly, I was telling somebody the other day, it's a wonderful neighborhood that we live in, and my kids can leave their bikes out by the road, and they're there all week. And in previous locations where we've lived, that has not been the case. You leave a bike out by the road, and in 10 minutes, it's gone. And so we're really grateful to live in the community that we do. And when we're gone, our neighbors watch out for our house, And when they're gone, we watch out for their house, and it's like watching paint dry because nothing's happening, nothing nefarious anyway, and so we're really grateful for that. Just a couple thoughts that I had. Yeah, I think the town halls are really beneficial, and I appreciate you and your willingness to listen to residents. Something that I have been very fond of is this idea, and I know Dan Records and I used to talk about this a lot, is you can get a lot of feedback if we change the rules of order or the agenda for council meeting and put those public comments up front. Thankfully, during COVID, one of the nice things is you could see a lot of different council meetings all over the state because they were online on Zoom. And many of the cities had that up front. I feel like it's very respectful to our residents. They don't have to sit through a 2.5-hour meeting to get 3 minutes of time. They can say their piece, they can leave. We get to hear that, as city leaders and make some decisions on that. And I think that is important. I also am not sure that 3 minutes is the right timeline. I know you have to put something on there, but in 2 instances, I saw there was a 5-minute timeline in the cities, and every single person that got up and spoke was done in 5 minutes. I think they were able to relax a little bit and share what they wanted to share instead of the 3-minute clock coming in and people start stammering and get a little nervous, and then all of a sudden the 3 minutes is up. So I would highly encourage the council to essentially have a mini town hall any opportunity it gets. I know council is not required legally to have that, but it would be a good idea, I think, to get that constant feedback from residents. I appreciate the accessibility of our staff. I was able to talk to our Public Works Director today and his deputy. Really awesome staff we have. And it's funny that the moment I got out of council, I even struggle to find their phone numbers now. I don't have them right there accessible. And it's difficult to find that. And I know we have a communications person now, but when you go to the city website, you can't easily find a phone number for Public Works. And I think that would be, it'd be nice to be able to find that. On that note, as I tried to find Sean Coates, our Public Works Director's phone number, and I typed in a bunch of, Sean Coates, Public Works, Pullman, Sean Coates, Pullman, whatever, City of Pullman webpage didn't even come near the top. It was so far down the page that it was actually, I thought, a little embarrassing. What that tells us is that Google has pushed down our page because the readability and mobility of that mobile friendliness is so low that it's not giving us any due. So it's going to keep pushing that down, and I think that we need to work on that because it's 2022 and everybody's online and on their phones and trying to find this stuff. 2 last things. In my neighborhood, we do have nice sidewalks, which I appreciate. We also have an elementary school right around the corner, and we get so many cars just screaming down the road still. And I mentioned to Chief Opka North that I requested the speed trailer again, and I'm not sure when I turned into my old man, but now I'm really frustrated about the speed of these cars again, and I think we need to go back to examine that 20 is plenty in residential areas. We are allowed to do that through the state legislature without having to go through some of the standard level of service rules, and I think we should do that for the safety of everybody, including maybe the car's ability to see all of these other modes of transportation that are upon us. And then the last thing, and this circles back around to the beginning, when thinking about our neighbors and how important we all are in that community. It's Code Enforcement Month, National Code Enforcement Month? National Code Enforcement Month. Okay. I can't get rid of this thought that I would like to see some of our code enforcement more proactively, with the carrot, not the stick, but more proactively educate residents on certain areas where we may be out of compliance. Waiting for people to make a complaint. Terry Day had written in one of his news releases, one of his editorials, the problem with this is it pits neighbor against neighbor. And sometimes we have no other recourse if for some reason we don't want to end up on the outs with that neighbor than to make that complaint to the nuisance at Pullman email or call it in. And I would love to see some of those items be addressed by our code enforcement, even if it's just education. If it's a walkway that needs to be cleared, where do the garbage cans go? Like just all of those things where we just need better communication that reaches all the residents. I think that would be very helpful. And if there are other issues outside of those kind of neighborhood issues, I don't know where we stand on the C-Click fix or Cella 311 or any of that service request management, but I would love to see that as well, where a resident can go and they log a pothole and it automatically is in the system and Public Works has that and everybody can see where that's at any given time. I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
I think you've been talking to my husband about the speed limit on Sunnymead. Drives him crazy.
Well, I
He
appreciate your
calls all
husband.
the
He
time.
goes down the road like 10 miles an
I
hour.
know.
So yeah, no, thank you.
So if I can just follow up, I, again, appreciate those comments, Brandon. So I live on the corner of Spring and Dexter, and I too have real concerns about speeding. See it all the time, and have requested the speed trailer. Thank you. Which I think is helpful, but I do think that it would also be helpful to have more code enforcement, more regulation of that. I have not really seen, and it's just me, my observation, a lot of folks being pulled over in residential areas for speeding. And I can tell you firsthand, I see people go flying down Spring Street. It's like a fun little joyride, or they feel like they have to really speed up to get up Spring Street. So I have the same concerns. And I agree with you that code enforcement, I think it could be more proactive, and the education could be doing, we could be doing more on that. As a communications professional like you are, and it's always challenging to try and reach everybody. And like I said, it's also hard when you have owners of houses that don't live here. And that's a tough one to get them to be engaged and care about those kinds of things. So those are some of the barriers and the obstacles. But since our new communications coordinator came on board, and that was an initiative that started before I even came on the council, he is a busy guy and has been doing, as far as I can tell, a great job. And if we can do more of that education around, kind of, did you know that the speed limit on this street is, or it's this close to an elementary school, something like that, I think is helpful. And I don't know if people think that's too big brother, but I think it's being a good citizen.
I appreciate your comments, Brandon, about the comment period at council meetings. And we have made one slight change, and we do allow for comments between presentations and consent agenda, but those are limited to items that are being considered for action on that day. But I that has always been a concern of mine too. I think it's just awful to have people that want to make public comment wait until the very end of a meeting, particularly if it's a long meeting. So I think we can, maybe look at taking the next step on moving that around a little bit. I will also echo what Megan said about our new communications director. And first of all, thank you, because you were the impetus behind getting that started. And Matt has been doing a fabulous job. But one of the areas that I think he will be looking at is the website. And that's kind of been pushed down, a few levels because of other kinds of things, and Mike is shaking his head at me.
Sorry.
Come on.
It's only because I care, Pat.
He's got to keep us honest.
No. It's, the effort to fix this website has been replaced. The city council just approved a CIP that new website in 2023, and I've already made the communications coordinator aware that when this contract is done, if the new site is not up the next day, that will reflect on his evaluation at the end of the year, regardless of how all the council members keep showering him with praise. So I'm working really hard to get him dedicated towards that right now that that's been approved. And basically told him going back to the same vendor is not the option because that didn't play out very well for us in the past. The question you had on the 311, the backbone of that is our new accounting system that's going in that'll do all the other works for all the other pieces from permits through GIS, and that installation has started. The council that you were on approved that as part of the CIP, so as that gets up and going, we can bolt on that piece when it's ready to start actually functioning on a day-to-day basis. But that's a very difficult software implementation to do, so it does take time. But I think we're within months of being able to do that, not years, months. And I think that was all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I was kind of right.
You're extremely right.
I think it's important to note as I look at it, we have 2 pages of city council goals and priorities for 2023. It is amazing to me to see how many of these items have either been completed or are in the process of being completed. And these can be found on the city website. It's also very Googleable. So if you just put in Pullman City Council goals, you come up with the same documents. And I think it would be very a good exercise for people to look at what these goals are and really how many of them, as I say, have already been achieved and that we are working on. And I will say thanks to Mike Urban and our department heads for implementing the speed at which these goals and priorities are reviewed. We're just really, really going light speed to get some of these things done and bring us into maybe the 22nd century before we're done. But we've come a long way, and I think we have a lot to be proud of.
Yeah, I would echo that. We do have a very dedicated, very competent staff, and being new on the council, I am impressed that when we sat down to go over our goals and set them, that particularly Mike, and I'm also going to recognize RJ because I work with him quite a bit, in terms of moving those priorities along and bringing them forward to us for us to consider. It's a really good process. And I can't imagine other cities maybe have it that smooth, but I mean, could we do things better? Absolutely, but I think we really do have a very good staff.
This is your time, everybody. I know, though, that we probably just about exhausted all of our guests here tonight in terms of coming up to the podium, but if anyone has any other items that you'd like to revisit, this certainly can be done now, too. We've got plenty of time.
Thank you. Some of the comments have triggered ideas in my head, and as I age in this community, driving becomes a little more problematic. And I'd just like to point out the sense that I'm getting as a driver for fear at certain intersections that I really, really hope could be addressed with some kind of mitigation, especially the one on Pro Mall Boulevard that enters to Bishop Boulevard, where there's just a stop sign, and it's a very sharp curve, and it's very hard to see traffic coming down Bishop Boulevard from the left as you're at that intersection. And there is a railing in the way, and I'm wondering if we could ever use concave mirrors of some kind for intersections, especially like at the top of Spring Street when Derby is there and people are rearing up and you're trying to cross Derby. If I had a concave mirror there, I could see so that maybe there's a car down there coming, and I would take it a little more slowly. I know the concave mirrors might have been tried in the past. I recall from the 60s. Some were tried on Lower Drive in Juniper Way and those places, and I know that they were vandalized, so I don't know if it's still a possibility, but maybe there's some new technology that would allow people that have this sort of fear of do I go or not, to be relieved. And I know there's other scary intersections in our town too, but those two come to my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. To the podium. Oh, one more.
I'm Barbara Merchant, and I want to echo what Nancy said, because I live in that area with my dear friend Linda. People fly down Derby, and if you're trying to cross the street from the trailer park to the community garden, you really are taking your life in your hands at times. And it would be nice if there would be some way to maybe put up an electronic reminder further up as people are going down the hill that says slow down, or your speed is this, or whatever. And she is right. Trying to get off Pro Mall and get onto Bishop, making a left-hand turn, is also an adventure. And I don't know about the mirrors. I don't know if that would help, but it would be nice. There are some electronic devices that can say car coming or something. But maybe you ought to study that area, both areas, and see what is going on and what kind of risks are there that we see, that maybe y'all need to have documented. That's all I got.
I think I have a solution for the Pro Mall Bishop Boulevard thing, is to put in a roundabout that would go from Pro Mall to Bishop to Johnson and back to Bishop. It would take a large bridge to be able to do it, but it's doable. So just thought of that.
Okay.
I only laugh at the thought of roundabouts just because we have our 2 roundabouts in town now, and we've heard a variety of different comments about them. So I think people are still trying to learn to love them. Just in case we don't have any more comments, and it looks like they're coming fewer and further between, I'm going to throw just some information out there for people to be on the lookout for being able to participate in some focus groups that will be taking place here at City Hall. the week of October 17th, where we are going to be looking at getting feedback from people in regard to how do we best brand the city of Pullman. And so we have six or seven specialized focus groups, but then we will have one or two if we need to do that as a wrap-up. I think that's going to be on Thursday, the 20th, where the public is invited to come and participate. And so we will be doing a lot of publicizing of these dates. We have some time reserved to talk to Bill and Evan on the morning show to chat about that a little bit, where we hope to reach a good number of people and talk about the community feedback part of that. But it's a unique opportunity for us to showcase Pullman in the best way that we can, and we want input from all of our residents. So sorry for the shameless plug, because both Megan and I are part of the work group that's implementing some of this. But we need your help. We need your input. We want to satisfy what people are thinking they want to see. Kind of like, what do we want Pullman to be when we grow up? So we have that unique opportunity to do that here in the next year and a half. So. Okay. Mike, you're in charge. You're the timer.
Zapped again. Sorry. So I guess I'll give everybody one more. If they want to interrupt me here, I'll slowly do my outro if nobody wants to add. But I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight, taking part of your evening to spend and give council your feedback, and that can be disseminated down to us for actual projects. So round of applause for yourselves, and a round of applause too for the council members here tonight. So thank you all very, very much. Before you leave tonight, just want to also acknowledge Councilmember Eileen McCall is here. You're at large. So RJ Lott, our Community Development Director, Police Chief Jake Opgennorth, Fire Chief Mike Heston. So you have a lot of resources still here, and in case you want to find us sometime between now and then, we can help you out with whatever questions you have. There's a little tag card right there on the board, or on the table as well, has some contact information. This email address for your council members, I can tell you they watch those like a hawk. They are very respondent because they check in with us on some facts too before they reach back out to you. So please don't hesitate to reach out between meetings. As Brandon mentioned, you can come to the council meetings, but you don't have to wait. Send out a note and get a hold, and they're very good at responding. So I want to thank them for that. Unless I'd give you a chance to close the meeting here, but unless there's something else, we can certainly do this as a small group off tape. And thank you all very much for being out tonight.
Yeah, just want to thank everyone again for being engaged and being part of the process. And just want to reiterate that both Pat and I and all the council members are available by email, and trying to get back within a reasonable amount of time. If we can answer it right away, if we need to do a little research, then usually promise to get back to you within 48 hours. So at least that's what I try to do. So again, appreciate you coming out tonight and being engaged.
And I would say the same thing. It's just really important you can't communicate enough. And I think that you have seen just in the efforts that we have put out through our communication director and having these sessions, that we want that two-way discussion. And sadly, that can't happen typically during a council meeting because it's usually, one way. But I do like to be able to have the give and take and the conversational style that we've been able to establish. And I'm hoping that we will be able to continue these sessions. So stay tuned. Thank you all for coming.